Welcome to episode 130, where neoprene dreams of card-fueled adventures come to life. In today's episode, we're going to reveal the story behind GameHead Games, a company that started by laying the foundation literally with stunning, high-quality playmats, and is now leveling up into the realm of original board games. We're going to talk about vision, innovation, and what it's like to shift from supporting the game to creating the game. We're going to trace their journey from accessories to game design, and we're going to chat with their new creative director, Paul Salomon, a well-known name in the tabletop community. Paul joins me today to share his vision for GameHead's future, what it means to shift from supporting gameplay to actually creating it, and how the company plans to nurture a unique community focused on gaming as a shared social activity. This is an adventure you won't want to miss. So thanks for joining. Paul, morning. How are you?
Good morning, PJ. I am doing great.
This is great to finally get to do this with you. We met at Origins and kind of scheduled this for an early morning.
That's right. We put it real smart for those listening at home. It is 7 a.m. Central Time.
That is right. Crazy. So I did learn an interesting thing is that you're just in St. Louis. I'm in Springfield. We're like an hour away from each other. So
very near to each other. And I think I told you this the other day, but I designed Honey Buzz, and when I was in development with Elf Creek for that, they were HQ'd in Champaign, Illinois, and I'm in St. Louis. So Springfield was sort of like a let's meet in the middle. I think we met there like every 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month for, I don't know, a year or more playing iterations and stuff. So yeah, I've been to Springfield a lot of times. Also stopped at that old Steak and Shake that was there many, many times. It was kind of the perfect stop as I shot up 55.
Which is just down the street from where I live. So I love that. And at Origins, when talking about our meeting, I love telling that story to all my friends.
Oh, yeah.
Honey Buzz was birthed in my town.
That's right. And I'll tell you one more Steak and Shake factoid. I used to be so into Steak and Shake. First off, I had a girlfriend who worked at Steak and Shake. And secondly, I dressed up as a Steak and Shake employee for Halloween one year. And she got me a name tag, and I had the hat and the apron and everything. But they barely even, they don't even have servers at Steak and Shake anymore. So it's a very different place.
Yeah, very, very different. So that's amazing. So tell me, Paul, tell me a little bit about how you partnered with, you came, like, where did the iteration, whose idea was it to go create GameHead Games?
So some background here. GameHead Games, GameHead is owned by a guy named Alan Hockman, who is the owner of Gamer Mats, creator of all these things, and pushes these initiatives. But his story begins 33 years ago, I think, starting a retail shop called Pastimes, which still exists in the Chicagoland area. And along the way, they started doing events, tournaments, Magic tournaments, and now they are sort of the premier hoster of like Magic tournaments. So at Gen Con, I believe they're doing all of the Magic tournaments, all of the Lorcana tournaments. So that's a big part of the business, is running all the Pastime stuff. They do Magic cons. They just working all the time doing those kind of things. And at some point, he figured out, like, what would it take to make playmats here in the U.S., and ended up buying some machinery and has a 1,000 square foot warehouse and production facility in Chicago, where they buy neoprene and rubber, from China, but they print it all here in Chicago. And I checked out that facility. It's very cool. And they have a crew of folks that have been working there a long time, making playmats by hand every day. They have a custom minimum order of 1. So you can just, you want 1 playmat, you can do it. Their main competitor, for those that would probably know the name, was Inked, who made playmats.
Sure, yeah.
Inked, I think, just went out of business. So if you needed to get a playmat, gamermats.com is the place to go.
We have a gamer mat. We have a gamer mat on our dining room table, permanently set up, that we ordered, like some, because it's like large enough to fit our dining room. Yeah. And whenever we're serving food, we just kind of throw a tablecloth over top.
Totally. Yeah. So, what's on there? Is it just black, or there's like a design?
So we were looking for a solid color, and the closest they had on their website, it's like a grass. It's like a grass field.
Nice.
But we play everything on that.
Sure, of course. Yeah. Awesome.
So I love that.
So then, recently, I think, kind of inspired by what All Play did, shifting from boardgametables.com to become All Play, and also just recognizing some of what's been success. He just wanted to push in and see if we could make games. And his concept was, let's make 6 games all at once and put them
Mhm.
out in this retail kit, so that we're not just saying like, here's a game that we think is good and we want you to buy it,
Right.
which is what everyone on Kickstarter is saying, right?
Yep.
They're saying, here's this game that we think is good and we hope you'll buy it. And if I had done that with Honey Buzz and taken it to stores, and it would have been probably a very hard sell to be like, here's a game that's good, buy it. But when you come with a brand
Mhm.
that looks a certain way, and we have these display kits that we've built, it presents to the retailer and to the customer that like, there's something substantial here, there's something that makes sense, there's something you can depend on, there's some quality behind it. So that was the original goal. He hired me in October of 2024, which is not that long ago.
Not long
And
ago at all. In fact,
no, it's very
that's
not.
when we launched our YouTube channel. So you and I were
Wow.
making big changes in our lives, professional lives at the same
130
time.
episodes
Yeah.
in that time is crazy. So, yeah, he basically put in front of me, I want to make 6 games
Okay.
and release them kind of, he said kind of how long is it going to take. And
Right.
I came from a place where it takes a long time. And he said, really, I want to work on like 12 games and release 6, and then maybe release another 6, and then we'll do like a larger size game and stuff. So that was really the start. And
Wow.
it's been a ton of work since then.
Oh, that's amazing. That's incredible. So he approached you, right?
Well, no, actually. So I was head of development at Elf Creek for
Hmm.
about 2 years.
Okay.
I was a full-time teacher for something like 16 years. Time has eluded me now, but a
Sure.
long time. And then through the success of Honey Buzz and all kinds of things, I shifted to part time. So I was teaching 3 classes instead of 5, then working, 20 hours a week on Elf Creek products, Honey Buzz expansions, and Santa's Workshop, and Watches and Clocks of Hickory Docks, and all these other products for about 2 years. But Elf Creek ran into significant financial trouble, to put it mildly. So, I have a family. I have to
Hmm.
have a job and make money to pay bills and such. So I started looking for other work, and I saw their listing, whatever, up on whatever, website we use to find jobs these days. But it said like, you have to be local to Chicago. So I didn't even apply. And I never heard of them
Sure.
before, because they just rebranded. But then my buddy Derek Funkhauser got a job at Lucky Duck, because he was at Wise Wizard Games doing development, and then he left there and got this job right away from Lucky Duck. And I said, awesome, dude, congratulations. Now find me a job.
Right.
And he said, well, you should talk to this guy, Alan. He's doing this thing at GameHead. And so basically he set us up. And then Alan and I had a number of conversations about, frankly, Alan didn't know all that much about the game industry
Okay.
from a development standpoint. I don't think he would consider himself like a board gamer in the same way that you and I would.
Okay.
So we had to sort of get on the same page about what kind of games we were making, and
Right.
what our goals were. And I appreciate that he took a lot of thought and input from me, because there's a lot of games I just don't want to make. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
And I'm really thankful that I'm creative director, and basically I'm the first hire for the game side. So I've had the leeway to really pick and choose exactly the projects I want to work on and pick what they look like. And that's been super, super, super cool.
So it's interesting that Alan brings a perspective to the table that I would think would be helpful to you, especially as creative director now, right? Does that
A
partnership?
million percent.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that partnership's been really smooth, you found?
Yeah, so Alan is incredibly busy with his, 3 or 4 different businesses. So we only meet about once, maybe twice a week,
Okay.
but we have kind of, we have some structures in place about how things would work. And in the first wave of 6 games, so I built really in-depth project sheets for each project that include, all of the costs associated, and then uh just tons of stuff, that
Yeah.
freight costs, and how the box size is going to impact how many fit in a carton, and how many cartons fit on a pallet, and how many pallets fit in a 20 foot or 40 foot or whatever it is container. to get all the way down to like the royalties and what the total landed cost is, and then if we sell it into so ton of numbers so that we could estimate break even point and the return on investment and stuff. And it was because of all that work that we could kind of like, he could feel confident enough
Yeah.
to be like, let's go forward. So that was great. And we've had some conversations about making some tweaks in the future. We invested a lot in art in this first round, which I felt was really important
Yep.
to grab the gamer market. It's less important for some sorts of like mass market style games. And
Right.
so, each project, you got to pick the right thing for that project. But yeah, he's been great to work with. And the main value I think he adds to what we're doing, apart from all the money, is he has connections into a ton of retail because he owns a retail shop. He was on the board of Gamma.
Okay.
He has friends, old friends in distribution and stuff, so right
Right.
away we're going to be set up to sell into ACD and PhD distribution, I think,
Oh, that's great.
which is exciting. And his whole idea also to build this retailer kit, which is available to your FLGS right now. Our games are all $20, and the retail kit comes with 4 of each game. We'll sell them to you at 50%, and then there's a display kit, which is it's fold up display. It comes with 12 games in it. You take them out and build this little step thing in there, and then they kind of tier up
Okay.
like a Oink Games display or something like that. So you can
Oh, sure.
see all 12, and then also some branding, like it says 5-minute setup, 5-minute teach, 20 to 40-minute play. That's true for all the games, and party games, casual games, thinky
Right.
games. And on the back, for if you keep it on your countertop, the seller, the clerk, can see information about all the games, and so they can kind of. The
Oh, that's
idea was
good.
to make it as easy as possible for a retailer to know what the products are and
Yeah.
convert the products to sales. So,
Nice.
that kind of like business insight
Mm.
is super, super useful.
Yep. So in my intro to the episode, I had said, and I stole it straight from GameHead's website,
I
is
know
that
I caught some of that.
you caught it. Your part of your vision is that gaming is a shared social activity. So I'm wondering, how do you see not just the 6 games you have coming out, but the future of Gamehead? How is it going to fit in nurturing this sense of community and
Sure.
promoting that shared experience?
Yep. So here's what I'll say first about it. So I'm also a host on the Decision Space podcast, and we talk about all kinds of like preferences and differences. I mean,
Yeah.
one of my good buddies, Pete Wissinger, who was co-developer on one of these games, he and I have very different tastes about games, but
Mm,
we play together.
okay.
We play together every Monday. So the game lines sort of reach out broadly to
Hmm.
try to grab a lot of folks and hopefully bring new folks into the
Right.
gaming world. So our party line especially is focused on what most people,
Right.
non-gamers would
Right.
consider a social activity, which is let's get together, let's laugh, a lot of people need to be able to play, and it sort of structures socializing in a goofy fun way, which is I think what First Class Letters is a little thinkier than that. But most people think of their social interactions as like fun and like
Right.
probably effervescent and kind of maybe loud or something. So that's kind of what's happening there. But for gamers, let's just say hobby gamers, you, me, probably everybody listening to this podcast,
Right.
we often are looking for more strategy.
Hmm.
We're looking for, when we say a shared experience, that shared experience might happen in the center of the table where there is some central board that we're all interacting with, or some shared economy that we're interacting with. So for those games, for the Thinky line, the shared experience is much more interactive and strategic. So a game like Trinket Trove, pardon me, is Trinket Trove's a set collection card game. It's a bit like Money from Reiner Knizia, which All Play just published. You have a hand of cards, and some are revealed in the middle that you'd like to collect, but you need to bid for turn order to draft those things. The things you bid with are cards already in your hand, and those cards also get claimed by people. So there is a closed economy where every card that's in people's hands will stay in people's hands, but exchange hands,
Hmm.
and additional cards come into the economy. And so, that's a shared experience that's very different from something like Foolish Fool, where anybody can play Foolish Fool and immediately understand what it is. And if they can read, they can play, and they will almost certainly laugh. But Trinket Trove is a very different kind of strategic thing. It's not actually very heavy at all, but that's the sort of thing we look for when we think of a shared gaming experience. And our third line is the casual games, which are essentially for just about anybody. They're going to be a little closer to the thinky in that you know, they have, it's like there might be some really light trick taking or
Hmm.
some secret bidding, but they also are pretty rules light. They also can be fairly strategy light and a little random. They can accommodate chaos. And that's really because the sort of what I would call the casual gamer who frankly might be in the 50% of people at Gen Con that are not there to play hobby board games. They just see a game that's cute and they want to try it and they want to have fun. And so if we can make a game that's fun for those kind of people too, then the whole community gets wider, right?
Right.
And we can bring more kinds of people in. I mean,
Right.
I know you just saw that interview with Drew Denning, but I do not game head keep. Everyone is welcome to come in and be a game head, and we've got games for everybody.
I love that. So I want to talk about game design, but I'm thinking about Trinket Trove because
Mhm.
you taught it to me in like 5 minutes, just like you said.
Mhm.
So you were
Yep.
true to your word. It was easy to learn. While you were teaching it and we were playing, I was thinking about some of my family back home. I was thinking about some friends who aren't gamers. I was like, they could get this.
Mhm.
But to your point, there was deep and rich enough strategy as a hobby gamer that it really kept me interested, and I wanted to share this game and look forward to getting a copy and sharing it with my family.
Yeah.
So how do you, as a designer, how do you achieve that, right? Like how do you bring that balance together? Is there an overarching theology? It's not the right
Mhm.
word, but it's
Sure.
the one that comes to mind.
Sure.
Theology in your game design that you manage to achieve that balance?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think to be broadly accessible in general for game design, this is true really in any game design, I should say.
Sure.
You
Okay.
have to have the clearest, cleanest version of the idea
Right.
so that the game communicates itself to the gamer very easily and can be taught easily and can be understood easily. It has language that's clear and
Right.
doesn't interfere with itself. It has player aids, obviously, so there's just in general, you have to have the best possible user interface and iconography and a rule book that really works, all that kind of stuff to create a good user experience. But, you can take Terra Mystica as far as you can take it with all of those things, and it's still not going to be for my dad, you
Right.
know?
Right.
So I think that when you look at, and I should say, no, Board Game Geek is such a teeny tiny microcosm, not a microcosm, such a teeny micro set,
Mhm.
subset of the hobby world, of the board gaming world. It's insane and laughable. I mean,
Hmm.
BGG is a huge deal,
It is.
but we know that it skews very heavy. The popular games there are very heavy.
Right.
And there are games that come out and sell 1 million copies that will have terrible BGG reviews because it's just not who the gamers are. You know what I
Right.
mean? Sure, they're a certain kind of gamer there, but more games sell at Target than get rated on BGG, obviously.
Right. Right.
Right? I mean, you know what I mean? And if we looked at something like Exploding Kittens on BGG, what would your guess be for what the BGG Exploding Kittens average rating is?
Oh man, I don't know. I couldn't even begin to think.
Throw one out there.
Yeah, what like a 2.3 or something like that?
That would be extremely low. This is a 5.8, but that's very low also.
Okay.
But here's what you need to know. The Exploding Kittens Kickstarter campaign
Uh-huh.
had about 230 million
Yeah.
backers.
Wow.
230 million backers. And right now, the games that we have on people's top 10 lists have maybe they had 10,000 backers,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
So it's a very different world when you think about who out there is playing games and what makes that game good for them.
Mhm.
So I think there's a and my podcast to some extent serves this. There's an echo chamber of We like the things we like, and we
Yeah.
get around with the people that like the things that we like, and we talk to each other about what we think is good or what we think is bad or why, but that's just for us. And to make something more broadly accessible, you have to think outside yourself.
Mhm.
I'm as a game designer, when I made Honey Buzz or I made Stamp Swap or I made whatever, I made a game that I would like, that I wanted
Right.
to play, that I wanted to see in the world, that I thought deserved to exist. But as a publisher, it's completely different. And, you're not making games for yourself. Like I said, I don't, there's lots of games I don't want to make because I'm just not interested in them. I'm probably the wrong person to make them. But I'm not just thinking about what I like. And I am thinking about not just sales because we have to make money, but sales
Right.
because that's more people are going to like your thing and it's going to have a greater impact on people's lives.
That's just brilliant. That's well said. Yeah. So let me ask, how have you experienced recently? We can't get away with not talking about it. So you're about to put out this line of games. You've
Yep.
just created this new entity partnership, and we have a trade war going on.
Yeah.
How is navigating that? What has that been like, and where have you found success?
Sure. Our like I talked about those spreadsheets, everything in those spreadsheets from day one was built on a $20 MSRP. And so we kind of reverse engineered that and talked to Allplay, who has a $20 MSRP, and figured out what our landed costs need to be, production costs, art costs, etc., to get profitable on like a $5,000 print run or 5,000 print run units, which is frankly it's a lot of games for a starting company. And people in the industry sometimes talk about your multiplier from landed cost to MSRP, which is 5 or 6 is what we did at Elf Creek, and the margins are a little tight, so we excuse me, we pushed that a little higher to try to have room. So then once when the tariffs were announced at wherever they started initially, maybe it was
Right.
50%. We were going to raise our prices to 25, which I think the games could be 25 anyway.
Hmm.
Um, there were some sort of odd reasons why we didn't want to do it, apart from more higher prices, less sales.
Right.
So that 50% scared us, and then they were 100%. And we
Hmm.
were like, okay, wow, this is really bad. And then they were, whatever it was, 145%.
Something like that. Yeah.
And that was a huge problem. I mean, we had costs that were, they were going to be $1 and now they're 250. And yeah, that was going to be really, really crazy devastating to the global economy and to board gaming. I mean, one thing to say is that the night that that was announced, the 145, there was a lot of panic, and
Sure.
Alan really thought like, we're just going to stop the games. We've paid some money, but let's just stop right there and not go forward and just cut the risk. And luckily cooler heads prevailed and we did push forward. But yeah, we actually air freighted in about 300 copies or something of our games, and those came across at 145%.
Mm.
So, that really hurt. That's a bunch of money. And then luckily they came down. So we freighted in on ocean freight. We brought in, I think, about 44,000 units, and those came in at 30%. Now, that's still like $30,000 that
Right.
we did not anticipate spending. So it super sucks, right?
Yeah.
That's just money that goes to the US government from our company and makes it a little harder for us. And so our choices were we had to raise prices or make less money. And so we decided to make less money and
Mm.
stay at $20. And then
Yeah.
if we release a mid-size game, it'll be $30 and big boxes would be 40. That's kind of our plan. We thought we could do 25, but let's try to stay at 20. And
Yeah.
hopefully the market comes our way towards, if we can stay at $20, maybe it makes us more competitive and maybe people will shift towards smaller box games. So, there's been so much volatility that it's been impossible to actually estimate anything. What I
Sure.
will say is that I had conversations with US printing facilities and manufacturers and got some quotes and stuff. And I know that they had a million quotes to do when tariffs were so high. Of course,
Sure.
all of that demand has been undercut by dramatically sweeping changes to
Mm,
the tariffs. But,
sure.
a game that's $1.50 to make in China is $5 in the US. That's 300% or more. So if we wanted the same profit margin, we'd have to sell them at $60.
Mm,
We're not going to do that.
sure.
And I just want to say, like, I work with Gameland in China. I've worked with Rawstone and Panda, and I've talked to eStar and all kinds of people. I love the people that I work with in China, and I have just no reason to think that I shouldn't be doing business with them. I
Mhm,
love Rainbow Yang and Judy and Alfred at Gameland. All these people are awesome, and so I'm
mm.
I'm glad that we can continue to keep working with them.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's an element of this story that a lot of just gamers, hobbyist gamers, we miss that. Is why do these publishers keep working with China? And it's because of the relationships that you built.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. These guys rock. They're so good at their job. They're incredibly nice and responsible.
Mhm.
I mean, they just want to do good business with us the same way we want to do good business with them.
Sure.
And I would have the same interactions with them if they were in Springfield, Illinois, as I do in Ningbo, China. It's just that
Right.
we could all meet on Central Time.
Right. Which is so much easier. I
It
gotta say
is.
that
I would take it.
this is great that like we're in the same time zone because gosh,
Yeah.
time zones,
But
man.
we're still up at 7 a.m., which is what I would be doing if I wanted to meet with, whoever in
Yep.
China or Britain or wherever. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you had mentioned early on in your early conversations with Alan, 12 games, release 6. I know that you're releasing 6. So did you make 12 and you're going to release 6 and you've got another 6 in the pocket, or
Yep.
what is that?
So,
Yeah.
so when I was signed, we had one signed game. When I came on, we had one signed game, which was called Queen of Horde and became Trinket Trove.
Okay.
There were two games that they were in discussions about, but actually didn't have a contract on. One I kind of said I didn't want to work on right then, or maybe on a later line. The other one was a re-implementation of the Gudetama card game, which I did that design. The new design became Corgi Pile Up,
Mhm.
which I designed with Steve Ellis. And then outside of that, there are two games that are sub licenses from, what do we have? Foolish Fools from Keef Edition in
Yeah.
France. That's their game Foo 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 and its expansion. Foo 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 means crazy, crazy, crazy. And then Venture Angels is a sub license from Mondu Games in Korea, who Mondu does many, many amazing games. This one is flying under the radar, but it's so good. And then signed to more games, original titles. So we've signed First Class Letters from Peter C. Hayward, a word game, roll and write word game. And then we signed No Loose Ends from Taiki Shinzawa, an incredible trick-taking game from 2024 that released only in Japan. So that was the first wave, get those 6 together. And of course, along the way, I mean, I had huge, huge lists of potential games. And I have to see at least, it's got to be 100, 250 games a year that I get pitched in my email mostly. So, there's things in there. I got pitched something at Origins that I'm really
Mhm.
excited about. So, right now, assuming I can sign that game, we have our next wave of 6 set. And we have another 2 games past that set that are both signed. One is Vabank from Leo Colovini and Bruno Faiduti. This is
Mm.
one of Tom Vassel's favorite games. It's
Okay.
kind of a bluffing, gambling sort of game. You add these poker chips to increase the value of these tables, and then you move to them. But somebody might cheat at that table and take the things from you. It's very interactive, fun game. And then another Bruno Faiduti game. I'm a big fan of Bruno Faiduti. So wave 2 though is set, and it's going to be another 2 party games, 2 casual games, 2 thinky games. We have an amazing trick taking game from Taiki Shinzawa coming, which I will just tease a little bit here.
Oh, okay.
It's a re-implement because we just started art on it, which is really cool. So it's a re-implementation of his game Twinkle Starship,
Uh-huh.
originally called
Yeah.
Segment Tricks, I think.
Yeah.
And ours is going to be called Trick to the Future. It's a
Mm.
time traveling, trick taking game reminiscent of Back to the Future, as you might imagine.
Come on.
The hook of the game, gameplay wise, what makes it a time traveling game, you have cards in 4 suits, past, present, future, and beyond.
Mhm.
And you have the numbers go from 0 to 9. And the center of the cards is a 7 segment display. like you would have in a DeLorean, let's say,
Sure. Yeah.
or a digital clock. But you have these fuel rods for your time traveling machine, which are basically wooden sticks. And when you play a card, you can spend fuel rods to put them on the card and change the number. So
Oh,
if you have a 0 there, you can spend a fuel rod and turn it to an 8. And
wow.
this can help you win tricks. But every successful trick you win is like a time travel that you took. And at the end of the round, you need to be able to get back to your own timeline. And so to do that, you need to have enough fuel rods left over to cover the number of tricks you've had. So if I win 3 tricks, I need to have 3 fuel rods at least to get back. You get certain points if you have, leftover fuel rods. You get double points if you have a perfect journey, and you get no points if you have no fuel rods left to make it back. So
Oh.
it's a very, very unique gameplay experience, and the art is going to be really, really cool. I'm very excited about that one.
So we're going to be on the lookout. What is it going to be called?
It'll be called Trick to the Future.
Trick to the Future, guys. That
Yeah.
sounds amazing.
That's going to be really, really, really cool.
That's cool. So it sounds like, yeah, you've got a lot in the pipeline. Do you have a robust process for, and the reason I ask this is because I've got a lot of first-time designers who've been featured on here. I talk to them all the time. Had some great conversations at Origins with friends, and they're looking to pitch maybe their number 2 game. Do you have a robust process that they can come to you and be like, hey?
Sure. Yeah. So the thing that I always ask, first of all, anybody can email me, paul@gamehead.com. I respond to emails. If you want to pitch me a game, really the only thing I need to see is a short, 2 to 5 minute overview video. It can be any quality. It can be completely unedited. It can be shot on an iPhone. I've looked at pitch videos that are shot on an iPhone looking at a screen, an iPhone recording a computer screen, and it's still better than any amount of writing that you can put in a
Right.
in a thing. Obviously in that video you should tell me the player count, you should tell me the time length, etc. But I just don't have time to read your rule sheet. Sell sheets just don't get enough information down typically for me to
Sure.
understand what it is. I want to know who you are. I want to know the very basics of your game in writing. But then show me and you don't have to teach me a whole game. You don't
Right.
teach me the game. Just explain to me what the thing is, what makes it fun. And I'll say a couple more things about, because I talk to a lot of new designers. The questions that I ask them about their game is like, number one, who's the game for? Right? Who's
Right.
going to like your game? And what are they going to, after they play it, what are they going to tell their friends about so that their friends want to play it?
Good
They're going to
questions.
go
Yeah.
and they're going to say, oh man, you have got to play Arapa Mine because it has this thing. It's like Battleship, but it's better because there's these gems in there and you shoot the light in and it bounces off. Like
Yeah.
it's almost hard to explain. You just have to play it. Or I can say things like, your game seems a little bit like it's a mix of For Sale and Splendor. So like, what makes it more than just a mix of For Sale and Splendor? Or why should I play this instead of playing For Sale? I think those are important questions.
Yeah.
And then the question that I'm always answering as a developer of a game is like, what is the game? What is this game actually about? How many rules can I get rid of so that it's just the core of that game, right?
Right.
For Sale is a game where you auction with money to get cards and then blind bid those cards to get VP. That's the game, right?
Yeah.
And it's easy to understand. It's a 2-stage auction process. And I think that's really important, right? And Honeybuzz, for example, is a worker placement tile laying game where you don't take actions with your workers, you take action tiles, and how you place them might create the actions you take. That might be a hook you would describe for that game. So I think that's really important. Anybody that sends me a video, I'm basically looking at it within 48 hours. I often send very thorough feedback, but sometimes the answer is just like, this seems kind of cool. I like that it's this part and this part, but it's not a good fit for GameHead right now. Or I could just say, we can't put this in our $20 box.
Right.
Or, whatever it is. Sometimes it's a theme, etc. But
So
I just had a conversation with someone this week where they sent me a cool design and they showed me the design on TTS, like recorded. And I just said, I think this is pretty cool, but all of our games are designed to be played on a bar top table, 30-inch diameter. And I don't think this fits. So
Okay.
and I think the components are a little, it's just kind of maybe it could be better. And I wrote, a couple paragraphs explaining what
Right.
I thought he could maybe do with the development, and then right away he started doing some work. So I'm looking at that game again, thinking about if it might be a good one.
So it sounds like you're committed to that $20 price point, keeping it within that same. I don't know if they're small boxes. I mean, because
Yeah, I
you
think we
show
call them
them to
small
me. We
boxes.
call them small
Yeah,
boxes.
I think we call them small. They're about an inch bigger than an all play box.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
And when I think of small box, I think of all play. So, and they're a
Right.
little bit bigger, but okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're committed. That's the size. So anyone comes to you with a pitch, or if you're thinking about designing a game yourself,
Right.
you're thinking about that space.
That's right. Thinking about that box size, we can fit 2 decks of cards side by side. Realistically, we could fit probably 200 cards in that box.
Yeah. Yep.
um, we can fit quad fold. We're gonna do a hex fold board. It'll fold out pretty darn big. Um, I know the numbers of 135 millimeters is kind of the biggest width you can put of a product component inside the box.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes people will come with a game that doesn't necessarily seem like it would fit in that box, and I can find a way to do it
Hmm.
because you can change the user interface
Sure.
to change the way that the people interact with the product so that it's smaller, right?
Right.
Designers don't necessarily always have a clear sense for like component fixes. Maybe they're thinking about gameplay fixes, and I think that's part of what development is.
Sure.
The harder thing for designers to know is how much it's going to cost to make their game. Typically, they'll think like, I mean, this is like a game I could buy for $30, or this is about the amount of components that are in a whatever cost game.
Right.
The more time that you spend in the industry, like, okay, I can make this deck of cards for $37 or 37 cents or whatever. And
Yeah.
I can do the box for this many cents, and the wood's going to cost 5 cents or whatever. So that kind of stuff really helps. Something that I never did it as a designer on my own, but I recommend to people is actually like reach out to someone and get a quote. Reach
Mhm.
out to a manufacturer and get a quote for your project to know what it's going to cost at 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 units, because that will be really, really valuable to a publisher to know like, oh, okay. Because it's a lot of work, first of all, for us to prepare the spec sheet to even hand over to
Right.
say these are the materials we want, like give us quotes, let's go through the thing. And it'll take a lot of time to figure that out. But if you can hand me the quote from Panda or Gameland or eStar or whoever, that's a huge help.
Wow. That's good advice. So I hope our listeners are paying attention if you're thinking about designing a game or working on it. That's really good advice. So something else that stood out in my mind, your first 6 games, and you said this earlier in the episode, you've got 2 thinky games, 2 casual, and 2 party games. Is that your vision for future lines of games, that 2 by 2 by 2?
Well, I'm not sure. I
Okay.
think partly we'll see what is catching. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And we'll sort of we wanted to go wide to sort of see like, I think all play goes pretty wide and
Mhm.
catches a lot of folks. We wanted to be doing that. Oink Games catches a ton of folks, but they really only have one line,
Mhm.
which is this is our box size and these are good games. So I'm not 100% sure. Right now, the things that are selling the most are the thinky games, but that's because we're really ahead of release. I mean, we're selling now on gamermats.com, gamehead.com. But the people that know about the games, again, are the inside hobby gamers. And even at Gen Con, we'll have a big booth there. We'll catch a whole different crowd of people, and things will start to shift, I would expect.
Right.
So, and we're not sure if we're going to do 6 again, or maybe we'll do 3 and then 3. But it looks kind of like we'll have 4 ready to
Okay.
to go. So partly it depends on when things finish, when they're done and ready to print, and then partly it depends on uh, when we are ready to print enough to fill a container.
Right.
If we have restocks of old titles that we need to do, then that might help. Or if we're gonna like do localization, maybe someone wants to print in the Netherlands, then we will include them in the print run and that kind of stuff. But those 3 lines I think are good and
Mhm.
kind of communicate,
Yeah.
but we might also add a 2-player line. I'm open to other kinds of
Right.
things. Yeah, and I'm not sure if we would do a solo game right now or not. It's a very hobby market type of thing. Well, here's an interesting fact: is there's a game called Orapa Mine, which I just talked about for a second, I think,
Yeah.
um, from PlayT Games, and this has been getting a lot of press as a really amazing deduction game. It's basically you and I are playing Battleship, and we have these gems in there I was talking about,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to, by kind of ultrasonic radar, identify exactly the position and color of your gems. And you're
Okay.
trying to do the same for me. So back and forth like that. It is a two-player game. I'm sure that's how it was built to be.
Right.
But similar to a lot of types of games, you can have somebody just have the gems and facilitate the game, and then like five people can solve the puzzle
Oh,
against
sure.
each other, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a 2 to 5 player, but it's
Mm.
pretty different at 3, 4, 5. What Platy put on the box is like a big 2 and then a dash and a small 5, which I thought was interesting.
Wow, that's
So
interesting.
for that, I would put it in our thinky. If we had a 2 player game line, like a 2 player line, I would still put it in our thinky line,
Right.
but it's an interesting sort of blending spot where, we might do a 2 player game. I think the short answer is any game that I think is awesome that fits for what we're going to do,
Yeah.
we're going to try to do it. And right now it's got to stay in that 20, but that $20 box, but we do have like a $30 coming. And so we're starting to look.
Okay. So there's been a lot of chatter on Reddit, on Discord, all the different online communities about these are Gen Con attendees who are sharing concerns with, what is there going to be at Gen Con this year?
Mm,
So many vendors have pulled out. What are we,
mm.
what is Gen Con going to look like this year? So tell us, what can we expect from you at Gen Con? You did mention you're going to have a booth. You've got events, you've got demos, you've got learn to
Yeah.
plays. What do you have going on?
So we actually, this sort of whole pastimes gamer mats gamehead family, I think we have 3 different booths.
Oh,
So we have pastimes has a big HQ and event space in whatever the hall is where they play Magic and stuff.
right.
There is some other booth, maybe it's like on Lucas Oil Field, because I think some of this stuff is going to happen down there. And
Okay.
then in the proper vendor hall, which closes, when it closes and stuff,
Right.
that's where we'll have our gamehead gamer mats booth, and that's going to
Okay.
be on an end cap. It's booth 1629, a 20 by 20, so pretty big, one of those pretty big
It's
booths,
good size.
and
Yeah.
it's good size. And what we'll have there is 6 demo stations, one for each game, around the size of a bar top table, kind of 30 inches by 30 inches. Tons of games underneath those, so anybody can walk up, demo any of the games. That's kind of on the left corner. On the right side corner, we've got this big tower, like light up thing that shows the gamer mat side. And right behind that, there's a long row of our play mats on tables. Some of them, we have these really cool, like fuzzy play mats. People should come check out. They're really neat. And then right on the end of that, I think is a like a desk with a computer where you can look at what's online and stuff. There's another one of those in the back, and then there's 3 6-foot tables full of play mats with our
Okay.
register area. So we're gonna have a ton of stuff to come and check and feel. And then we also have, like, we sell some pins and stickers and stuff. We have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of cool characters on the playmat side that end up in there. So it's going to be an awesome place to stop by. Obviously, you can buy a bunch of great products, a great hang out with good people, and you can play these games. Come by and demo. Gen Con's not always a great demo spot, but I think the Gamehead booth will be.
Excellent. Excellent. So the games that you can demo,
Yep.
will they be available for purchase or not yet?
All of them, 100%. Yep.
Okay.
So we'll be demoing Trinket Trove. Basically, what we're going to use to demo is, so this is a little known fact. If you buy a 3x3 Calyx and a 2x2 Calyx, you
Mhm.
can kind of Frankenstein them together to make 2x3s.
Yes.
Okay. So, take 2x3s, jam them together, and now you have basically a 30-inch square, pillar. And then you've got 12 cubes to store games. So we're going to have tons of copies of each game underneath the demo area. You can grab those. They're $20. And I think our deal is going to be, if you buy 5 from the set, 5 games, you can get a 6-game free.
Oh, that's awesome.
So if you're looking to get gifts or just buy the full wave one, everything's going to be for sale there, and all our sweet products will be there. I'm sure there's specials on the gamer mat side too that I just don't know yet.
And what was that booth again for everyone listening?
That's booth 1629.
1629, guys. So make sure if you're at Gen Con, check them out. Paul, thanks so much. This has been a great conversation. Thanks for your honesty and fielding all my questions. I appreciate it. This
Thanks,
has been
buddy.
fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. Will I see you at Gen Con?
You will. You will.
All right,
And
good.
now I know where to go.
That's right. Anybody listening out there, come by, say hey, shake a hand, let's play a game, let's chat a little bit.
Yep. Guys, check out these games. They're Paul shared them with me at Origins. They're really cool. I've got my eye on Trinket Trove. I've not stopped thinking about it since you showed it to me. Guys, thanks so much for listening or watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Please, we're trying to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube by October. We're at 76. We're almost there. Don't forget Spotify, Apple, all your podcast streaming devices. And once again, be kind to each other and play more games.